Hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I see we have participants who are joining and the number is increasing. So let's wait for everyone to join in and then we'll get started. Right, so meanwhile, participants who've joined, a very warm welcome to all of you all. Good evening and thank you so much for joining us today. I hope I'm clearly visible and audible. Let me know in the chat, just like a yes or a no or a thumbs up, so that I get a confirmation from you all. Okay, so Gaurav says yes, that's great. I hope this is the same with everyone. Okay, perfect. Great. So I'll just wait for a minute more. Like I just want everyone to join in this call so that we can get started. So let's give everyone a minute, and then we will probably get started with the session. Meanwhile, we have other participants who are joining, right? So you all can let us know what background are you coming from and what is it that you're expecting from today's session. I'm sure, before joining the session, you may have certain intention to join this particular webinar or today's session, right? So let me know that in the chat. I would be very happy to read, what is your motive to join the session. And we'll also have an introduction poll in a while, once everyone joins in, and there also you can share your what is your intent basically to join the session. Okay, I think it's 7:02 and I'm just going to get started without any further ado. So once again, for participants who've just joined us, a very warm welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. We have not started with the session yet, and I'll just quickly start by introducing myself. I am Shubhada Lokre and I'm a program manager at Upgrad. So if you do have any questions related to Upgrad or let's say careers or programs related to product management, this is the right forum where you can get all your questions answered. So make sure that you're capitalizing on this. We have a Q&A option, a Q&A box that you will see in front of your screen. So make sure that you're posting and asking all your questions in today's session, because the last 15-20 minutes will be a live Q&A with an expert. So I would just want everyone to make the session very interactive by sharing your questions, because I'll be picking all the questions from the Q&A only. Okay, so make sure that you're posting your questions in the Q&A. All right, great. Now, I'll also quickly introduce what is the agenda of the session today. Now, having said that, we have a live Q&A towards the end. What is it that we're going to be talking in today's session? So, I'm sure everyone is aware about product management as a domain and what are the opportunities it's going to entail in the future, right? So that is what we will be talking about, and I'm sure a lot of participants here who have joined us in the session want to transition, start their career or grow their career in product management, right? So that is all what we will be talking in the session today, in terms of what is the product management domain and how you can crack a role in product management, even if you come from a non-product background as well, even if you want to start or grow your career in product management. So that is exactly what we are going to be talking in the session today. And to deliver this topic, we have Ram, who comes with more than 10 years of experience in the product management domain. He's definitely a veteran in the product management industry, and he's presently working at Flipkart. So Ram, thank you so much for joining us today. And we are pretty much looking forward to hear from you, and so that you can share your experience that you've gained over so many years. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Shubhada. Thanks for this warm welcome, and glad to meet aspirants from the PM industry as always. Yeah.
Right. So participants, what I've done is I've just posted, there's a poll that I have published. It has 5 questions. Now, again, very important for us to understand what background you're coming from and what is it that you're expecting from today's session. So, we can set the context. I can, share the details with Ram, and, then he can take it and build from there. So again, very important. I want everyone to participate in this one. So I'm going to give everyone, let's say, minute, less than a minute, around 40 to 50 seconds, so that everyone just fills up the poll. They can cast their vote and we can then share the analysis as well. Okay, the poll is live and we have around 30% participation. I'm expecting 90% at least. So yeah, I'm just going to keep the poll live for a while. Okay, so few. Okay, great. All right, so there are a few participants who also want to enroll into the program. That's amazing. So if you have any doubts in terms of the program, or anywhere that you're stuck before taking a decision, you can also ask those kind of questions as well. The forum is pretty much open for any kind of questions that you have related to program management or upgrade as well. So yeah, make sure that you're posting your questions in the Q&A option, the Q&A box. All right, 72% participation. Last 10 seconds, and I'll just shut the poll. All right, so I'm just going to, without any further ado, because we have certain time constraint, I'm just going to end the poll. And I will be sharing the analysis. So Ram, if you can see it in front of your screen. Okay, so I think the important factor to consider would be, what background are they coming from? So around 46%, that is around 50% of participants come from the product background, which means they're probably looking to grow in the product management domain. And we also have 54% participants who don't come from the product background, which means they're looking to get into the product domain. So that's great. In terms of work experience, we have majorly we have 3 to 6 and 10 plus years of experience. We also have freshers with 0 to 3 years of experience, and experienced folks with 10 to 15 and 15 plus years of experience as well. Outcome is to understand how can I get better at my current role with the help of the topic, how can I build my career in product management, learn about upgrades program and transition into product roles, and the motivation is to enroll into the program as well as hear from the speaker. So I think this is what I had, Ram, from my end. I hope this gives you certain context in terms of what is the expectation today, and you can take it from there. I'll be here moderating the session, so over to you now, Ram.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. Interesting poll. I think it's a very good mix of people from different experience levels and people who already have a product background. So yeah, glad to meet you folks, and always interesting to talk to you folks. So I have a few slides which I like to present, and we can go through some of it, and hopefully that answers some of your questions as you think about moving into or growing in your career as a product manager. And if there are any questions which are not covered, definitely we have Q&A at the end. We'll park aside good amount of time for that at the end, and we can take those up. So I'll just quickly share my screen. Yeah, I hope my screen is visible, right?
It is to me, participants. I hope that is the same for you. And also, let me tell you, we are going to make the session very interactive. So make sure that you're posting your questions. If you have any thoughts, you're posting it in the chat as well. So yeah. So Ram, participants are saying that it's visible. You can go ahead.
Sure. So before we begin, just a quick intro about me, so that you know who you are talking to also. So I lead the marketplace side of products at Flipkart. So I have been with Flipkart for close to 7.5 years now. I started my career back in 2009 as a software engineer, worked in a couple of companies as a full stack engineer, did my MBA from IIM Bangalore, and my MBA was primarily in finance and economics. So it was nothing related to product management, and we didn't have courses pertaining to product management at that point of time as well. But after doing my MBA, I wanted to get into the technology sector. I wanted to join a startup which was kind of playing in the growing ecosystem in India. So chose to join Flipkart. Within Flipkart, I have done 4 different product roles till now. cutting across different parts of the e-commerce ecosystem, starting from catalog, then doing growth roles, and then doing engagement, leading engagement products. And today I'm working with sellers who sell on Flipkart and helping them grow on the platform and make them more successful on the platform. So through this journey, I've learned a lot of things, and I would like to share some of those with you as I talk today, and hopefully that kind of helps you shape your thinking as you move into product management as well, right? One thing to note, like I mentioned earlier, I think my background also was not in product management. Although I had a technology background, but moving into product management was completely new to me. So a lot of my learning happened on the job, right? And you guys are fortunate enough that today there are structured courses which are available, like the one which Upgrad offers. And I've personally been through the content which Upgrad has part of its program, and and I'm also part of the curriculum design process and contribute in that manner. And you're fortunate that there's so much of availability of information to learn about product management and kind of develop yourself as a PM, right? And obviously there is good amount of content available online and in social medias to also learn. But that was not the case like 10 years back, right? Yeah. So now, as I go through the talk today, so I'll primarily focus on 3-4 things, right? I think we'll talk a bit about how is the PM role, how does it look today, what are the different flavors of a PM role in different companies and sectors, because it's a very generic role, right? And the role that a PM plays in a specific sector or a company kind of varies a lot. So there's no standardized definition to what a PM does in a day-to-day life, right? So we'll talk about it a bit. We'll also talk about who can be a PM. How do you, is there any limitation in terms of which background do you need to come from to get into a PM? Then we'll talk about how should you think about getting into a PM role? What are the things that you should follow? How should you prepare for an interview? All of that. And we'll end the session with probably talking about a bit about how do you transition, how do you grow after joining as a PM, how do you grow in your career, and what are the kind of additional roles and responsibilities you start taking up as you move from a entry level PM to a more senior level PM role. That's going to be more of the topics that we'll focus on today. I think the audience here, given that 50% if you come from the already are from the product background, I am assuming that you already are aware what is product management, right? But I'll just do a quick recap, right? The product manager role today lies in the intersection of solving customer problems, leveraging technology to do so, and delivering business growth through whatever products you build, right? So it lies right in the center of these 3 things. So it's a very generalistic role, and there's no boundary in terms of what you should know or what you shouldn't know as a product manager, right? You're expected to interface with a lot of different stakeholders, from engineers to designers to marketers to analytics folks to strategy consultants to leadership, to actually as you work in your product management role. So it lies right in the center, and it's a very, very broad role, right? And because of this flavor, the kind of activities that you perform on a day-to-day basis also varies slightly across companies and sectors, right? But typically, if you think about a PM role, there are 2 dimensions on which you can think about the kind of PM role that you're getting into, right? One is based on the kind of sector that you're getting into. Is it a hardware dominated sector or a software dominated sector? And I'll just talk briefly about what you do as a PM in each of these things, right? If you're in a company like, let's say, a Xiaomi or a OnePlus, where as a PM, and Xiaomi and each of these companies have both hardware product management roles as well as software product management roles. But let's say you're a hardware product manager, your role would be primarily understanding what should I put in the next device that I'm going to launch, right? And what should be the specs I include, what should be the features that I include, which kind of appeals to the target customer cohort that I'm trying to build my product for. But if you're in a software-based technology company, let's say a Uber or an Ola or a Swiggy or whatever it is in India, right? You're primarily building applications, right? Software applications. And these could be front-end applications like the websites or apps that you use, or it can be back-end applications. A lot of us don't realize that there are a lot of back-end applications which also play a role in product managers' life, right? For example, I work in an e-commerce firm, right? There are a lot of platforms which are a lot of applications which are deployed in the warehousing systems, right? In the physical warehouses where we store our products and fulfill your orders from, lot of applications operate there. There are The delivery executives who work with Swiggy, Zomato, they also have applications to help them understand what is the next order I should pick up and where should I deliver, all of that, right? So it's not just about building applications for the end customer like you and me, but also for a lot of the other stakeholders who are part of these industries, right? Uh, so depending on whether you are in hardware or software, your role varies from building devices and coming up with the next model that you get to launch versus building software applications to do your job better, right? The other dimension on which you can break a PM role is, and typically you would find these people talking about this multiple times as you interact with different PMs, right? There are growth PMs, there are platform PMs, and there are data PMs, right? And the role slightly differs between these three. Growth PMs primarily kind of try to optimize metrics, try to optimize the funnel. For example, if you are a growth PM uh, in a company like, let's say, Ola, your role would be primarily to how do I increase the number of rides taken on Ola cabs on a daily basis. That would be your primary metric, right? And you'll be looking at the entire funnel, how many users are opening the app, how many users are searching for a cab, how many users are actually ending up booking a cab. So you work across the funnel and try to optimize the metrics to increase your eventual goal of rides taken on Ola cabs, right? That is what a growth PM kind of does, right? Then there are companies like there are roles where you do platform product management roles, where your mindset shifts a little bit from optimizing the funnels to actually building scalable platforms, right? For example, let's say a Slack, right? Like if you're a PM at Slack, and I don't know how many of you have used platforms like Slack or maybe Discord in today's world. A lot of newbies have started using Discord. These are very extensible platforms. You have a lot of plugins like let's say Jira, for example, right? You have a lot of plugins. You can plug and play multiple extensions to these platforms to make your life easier. So as a platform PM, you are understanding what the ecosystem is. How do I build a platform which is scalable, which works well with the ecosystem, and kind of building a long-term view of how the platform should shape up and have seamless interactions with different things, right? Uh, the third kind of PM role is a data PM role, where you are actually building a lot of intelligent insights, right? Like, for example, let's say you're working in a company like Spotify, which is a music streaming app, right? Like something like YouTube Music or something like that, right? A lot of the goodness that Spotify derives today is because of the efficiency or the accuracy with which it delivers recommendations to its users. So understanding what the user preferences are, what might be the user interested in listening to right now, and then delivering the right kind of music recommendations so that you keep the user engaged on your platform and retain him over a longer term, are things that you need to think about, right? So as a data PM, you're primarily building insights and intelligence which help you move the needle in terms of business metrics, right? So although as a PM, there are some certain core skill sets which we'll talk about in the future slides, which you need to anyways do well on across any of these roles. But at the same time, the nuances slightly differ, and you need to maybe develop expertise on one or two skill sets if you get into any of these specific kind of PM roles. Now coming to the next question, right? Who can be a PM? And that this is a question I keep getting very often. And so I think what we have to realize is, to be a good PM, you need to have three core skill sets, right? And anyone who either has those skill sets or is putting in an effort to gain those skill sets can definitely move into a PM role and excel at doing that, right? So there's no limitation as to who can get into a PM role. And I'm talking from experience here. I have been in the product management industry and technology industry for more than 12 years now. And I've seen people moving from sales roles to operations roles, from content design roles, from completely different roles like design and architecture roles, like physical, building actually, how do I put it, like civil architecture roles, right? Like all of them get into PM roles, and they also excel in being a product manager. So there's no limitation as such, as long as you keep a very open mindset and keep learning, right? So now talking about the three core skill sets that you need as a product manager, the first and foremost is strong problem solving skills, because as a PM, you are eventually solving problems. Either it is customer problems or business problems, or maybe problems which are preventing you from executing well. So how can I change a process to make my execution more efficient, right? At the core of it, you're solving a problem, and by solving that problem, you're delivering value to your business or sector, right? So you have to be very good at breaking down problems and solving them, right? The second core skill set is having empathy. Having empathy not just for your customers, but even your stakeholders, right? What you have to understand is a PM, as in most roles as a PM, you would not have direct reporting for all the stakeholders that you would be working with, right? So you have to continuously influence them, right? You have to understand what their motivations are, what their incentives are, align them with your vision and what you want to build as part of your product. So that is very important for you to kind of succeed in your role. That's where having a strong empathy for both customers and stakeholders will help you move forward and make progress in a very constructive way. The third more core skill that you need as a product manager is good storytelling skills, right? Because at the end of the day, uh, you need to, as a product manager, you're thinking long term, and you have a certain idea in terms of how you want the product to look like 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, and you have to make leadership and everyone rally behind you. Let's say today you have 3 developers in your team and you have a certain idea of a product, and in order to develop that, you need 10 developers to work with you. But how do you get that additional 7 developers? You have to sell your vision to your leadership, to your management, and kind of convince them to put more resourcing, put more bandwidth behind you, right? So you have to be very good at communicating your idea, your vision, your roadmap, and convincing them. That's where you need a very good storytelling skills for yourself to kind of succeed in this role, right? So these are the 3 core skill sets that you need to develop. Now, depending on what your background is, what you've experienced in your life, you might be already good at some of these things, and you might need to develop slightly better in some of these roles, and that's completely up to you to kind of build those skills, right? Now, traditionally, we've seen engineers and marketeers kind of move into product management more often because they bring in one core skill set to the table. Engineers understand technology, marketeers understand customers and sales, right? But today there's no such limitation, right? Anyone can move into a product management role. And one of the key questions that I keep getting every now and then is, does a PM need to know software coding, or does he need to be from a software background? Again, just addressing that elephant in the room, there's no such limitation. I have seen people coming from every different background and succeeding in the role. So there's no such limitation, right? The only advantage that you get while coming from a software background is you probably know the terminology and you can converse well with engineers. But even if you're not from that background, it's only a matter of a couple of months or 3 months by which you'll have that understanding. You can start bridging that gap very comfortably. So, and this is just an extension of the previous slide, and these are just 4 example personas I have in front of you, but this is no way comprehensive and representative of what you guys are what backgrounds you guys are coming from, right? These are just example personas, and if you take a look at it, right, the first person I am talking about here is a fresher, right, who is fresh out of college, and this can be an undergraduate coming out of a BTech institute, or maybe a BCom or a BBA, whatever it is, right? Or it could be a postgraduate after doing his MBA or whatever it is, right? Now, the kind of strengths that they bring to the table, they are curious, they are very, very curious, right? And they want to contribute. They want to make a difference in whatever they want to get into. They come with a lot of energy, and it might be an underestimation, but you need a lot of energy to actually succeed in a PM role, because you, in more often than not, you're in a driver's seat and you have to show proactiveness and ownership to move things ahead, right? And these freshers also bring in a very fresh perspective because they are unbiased by the challenges that happen within an industry or a company, right? They are completely unbiased and they're coming from a very neutral perspective. But at the same time, what they haven't experienced is they don't have the domain knowledge of the industry, so they need to develop that. They don't understand how organizations operate, how different stakeholders interact with each other, so they need to understand those dynamics and figure out how to engage with them. And like always in India, you learn a lot of theory, but in order to apply them and succeed in your role, you need to do a lot of unlearning and relearning to kind of apply your knowledge and succeed in your role, right? But there's no such limitation. Again, freshers today have ways to get into product management in India today. There are a lot of companies which offer APM roles, associate product manager roles, which you can get into even if you're fresh out of college, right? Then the second persona here, which I've talked about, is a software engineer. And in the past, I talked about like mostly software engineers or marketers have been the people who have get into product management. Now, if I talk about software engineer, what they already know is the understanding of technology. So it's easy for them to understand feasibility. When you're building a product, what is feasible, what is not feasible, how much time will it take, what can be the challenges which I would face while building a product. Those are things they are already better at. And they also come with a very long-term thinking mindset, because as a software developer, you're always thinking, how do I want to evolve my platform in the longer term? So you have a very long-term thinking mindset. But at the same time, you also are, most software developers are perfectionists, right? They want to have exact details of how the software should behave. They need very specific details, and they push, like, think people like us, product managers, to give us the exact details of what needs to be coded. The PRD needs to be very, very refined and everything, right? So, but when you get into a product manager role, there are 2-3 things that you need to start doing differently, right? One, they probably don't have that much of business knowledge, right? And they need to adapt to that, and kind of start understanding business knowledge. What is the profit and loss statement? What is the company's strategy? What is the company trying to do to get to higher revenue or higher profitability in the future? So they need to get that business knowledge, right? Understanding. They also need to start thinking broader, right? They cannot think just about software. They have to think about business. They have to think about design. They have to think about data, everything, right? So they have to keep everything, all stakeholders and all different dimensions in mind while building a product. The third is dealing with ambiguity. A lot of time when you are working as a product manager, you are just given a problem statement, and you're not given any direction in terms of how do you solve that problem, right? And it's upon you to kind of break down that problem and identify, build your roadmap, and identify what products or features you need to build. So that's what probably a software engineer needs to work upon to actually become better at in a role of a product manager. Now, if I talk about a marketer, he or she brings a different set of skill sets to the table. They understand customers very well. They are probably very good at execution and getting things done, but probably they haven't explored leveraging technology that much, right? Now they have to start thinking, in order to achieve my goals, how do I leverage technology? I cannot just rely on manual operations or manual processes to get things done. I have to build scalable things for the future. So I have to leverage technology. And a lot of times you're also very thinking in the very short term. I have a target of doing X number of sales in this month. So what is the quickest way to achieve that target? What can I do in the next 1 week to achieve that target? That is the mindset sometimes they have, right? In order to be better at a product management role, you have to start thinking longer term. Think like 5 years down the line. What should the product look like, and build for it. So these are some of the personas, right? And I'll not talk about architect. I think you get the point, right? I think but the common thing across this is there's no such limitation as to who can get into a product manager. Each of these personas can get into a product management role. What you have to understand is there are some skills that you already possess by what you have done in the past, and there are some things you need to learn or develop, and you have to identify very consciously, go through or scan through what are the competencies you need as a product manager, which are those where I probably need to develop my skills further, and then start putting in an effort to learn those, right? As long as you do that, there's no limitation as to who can get into a product manager's role. Now, getting into a little bit of specifics, right? Let's say you understand a lot of this, you know which kind of PM roles exist in the industry, you know what skills you need to develop. But then there's a simple framework to get into a PM role, right? It's a 4-step journey in my mind, right? The first step is developing your PM skills, right? Either you do, 1 second, sorry. Yeah, so, and there are different ways to develop your PM skills, right? Like I talked about earlier, there are a lot of content available online today to learn and excel and develop your PM skills. But at the same time, what you have to understand is a product management job role is a very experiential role, right? You learn many things doing by practice, by just doing it, and a lot of experiential learning happens on the job, right? So it's not about theory. So the more you kind of start having that mindset and start applying it in a day-to-day basis, you learn more about it, right? So just going through certain videos or content will probably you learn a bit of it, but you'll not be able to become an expert at it unless you start practicing about it, right? So either an MBA or structured courses, which platforms like, let's say, Upgrade offers, how it helps you is you get to bounce off your thinking process with your mentors and see and validate if you're thinking in the right direction. You get to engage with a lot of your peers and kind of and think together in terms of building a product. In the industry also, you're never working alone, right? You have a set of stakeholders and you're working together to build the product. So a lot of your learning as a PM happens by doing it, by practicing and by experiencing the role, and not so much by theory. The best way to develop your PM skills, that's why, is start thinking like a PM, right? On a day-to-day basis, when you're interacting with a physical product, let's say a TV or I don't know, a bicycle, start thinking ki, if I were a product manager owning this product, what are the problems I would like to solve for? What are the customer problems? How do I understand what those problems are? How should I solve it? Can I build up better design of the product? So start applying your domain expertise and start thinking like a PM. The second thing is, I think we underestimate the importance of networking, right? And everyone has gone through that journey. A lot of PMs have gone through that journey and learned from their experiences. So it's important to connect with them and learn from them instead of starting from scratch and repeating the same mistakes over and over again, right? The second part is how do I signal to recruiters, right? So developing your PM skills, let's say you do it, right? Whatever effort that you put in and you develop it. At the same time, if you're applying for a PM role at a company, the recruiter needs to be convinced that you're ready for that role. And only then he or she will give you a chance to get an interview or everything, right? So that's where I think having some kind of a degree or a professional certification will help you. That gives some kind of confidence to recruiters that he's ready for the role and I should give him an opportunity. The second part is building a portfolio, right? And there are different kind of things that you can do. That you can talk about, you have used a certain product, right? You can do an app tear down or a product breakdown to understand why the product has been built in that way. You can take a PM lens and suggest what should the next set of features that product should be building, and build certain case studies, build certain reports out of those and add it to your portfolio. And when you sell this portfolio, send over this portfolio to a recruiter, you will see the effort, you will see your thinking process and understand and gain confidence that probably you're ready for the role. And the third most important thing is designing your resume, right? A lot of us just reuse the same resume which you've been using till today in our current roles and apply for a PM role. That will not work, right? A PM resume looks very different. You have to talk about what your roles and responsibilities are. You have to talk about what features you've launched. You have to talk about what metrics did you move by by launching so and so features. So you have to build a resume pertaining to the PM career. Now, let's say you developed your PM skills, you found a way to communicate to recruiters you're ready for the role. The third part is finding opportunities, right? And there are typically 3-4 ways you can do that. The easiest way is to find opportunities inside your company, right? Because you have certain goodwill within the company, you know certain people, so leverage that goodwill to actually find opportunities. Maybe start with shadowing certain PMs who are already in your company, and move internally, do some dummy projects, do some side projects, help them in the projects that they are doing or the products they are building, and gain that goodwill and use it to move into a product management role. That's easy, right? Because in India there's certain bit of reluctance in terms of recruiters actually giving an opportunity to people who are starting from scratch unless you have a degree or a professional certification, right? The second easier way is through campus recruitment, right? I think you can get into some of these and again, a lot of these platforms offer structured ways to connect with recruiters, right? The third is doing internships, right? You can either do paid internship or you can do unpaid internships. And a lot of times people say, should I take a pay cut? Should I do an unpaid internship? I'm losing money out of it, right? But the lens that you need to take here is how do I balance short-term risk versus long-term potential, right? You need to optimize for your long-term. So even if, let's say, you do an unpaid internship for 6 months, it's okay as long as you build your skills. And the additional advantage that you get is you get a PM badge on your resume, right? And that will help you crack better roles in the future. So balance out the short-term risks and try to optimize for your long-term potential and benefits as much as possible. And the last part is, obviously, if you get certain opportunities and your resume gets shortlisted, how do you prepare a crack an interview? And that is what I'm going to talk about in the next couple of slides in details. So typically, if you think about the interview process for a product manager role, there are 3 kind of competencies or skills that you get evaluated for. The first is the core competencies, the hard skills that you need as a product manager, right? And that gets evaluated through 4 or 5 rounds. Many companies start off by doing a screening round, where they will either do an exploratory discussion where they call you up, understand your current work, understand your portfolio and try to evaluate you, or they'll give you some kind of a case study. Let's say they will give you let's say you are a product manager at Google Maps, and you want to increase the revenue that you generate through Google Maps. How do you approach it? Build a case study and send it over to me. So either through an exploratory discussion or through a case study, they do some screening and an initial shortlisting. After that, you have 3 or 4 rounds which you go through to evaluate your skills on problem solving. How well do you understand the problem, structure it? Do you have a structured approach? Do you break down the problem into sub problems? And generally you get asked questions around, let's say, guesstimate, like how many people travel out of, let's say, Bangalore airport on a single day? Or maybe let's say you are asked the rides taken on Uber on a daily basis has been dropping. So how do you fix it if you're a PM, right? So you get these kind of questions to help you do help the interviewer understand how you can structure the problem, break it down, and come up to an answer, right? The second kind of competency that you generally get checked for is a product thinking or a product sense round, where you typically get asked like product design questions. Either, for example, right, you get asked how do you build a, let's say, a book shelf for kids? That could be a product design question. Or it could be a small feature as well, right? Like, for example, let's say you're a PM in WhatsApp, and today WhatsApp doesn't have a way to do polling. If you have to build a polling feature on WhatsApp, how would you build it? So typically you get asked about designing a product or designing a feature, and the kind of things that you get checked for is how well can you understand the customer. Can you build the user personas? Can you define what are the different pain points or the user needs that exist? Can you prioritize what need is more important? And then how do you leverage technology to build that feature? Then how do you take it to market? How do you launch the product? What are the kind of success metrics you would look at to define whether the product was successful, not successful? Those are the things that you generally get evaluated for in a product thinking kind of a round. And the next kind of round that you get evaluated for is tech understanding, right? So here the primary focus of the round is understanding how much of a comfort zone would you have with engineers. Do you know basic terminology, right, of engineers, right? Can you think long term, or do you think more about building hacky solutions, short term solutions? Can you build long term? Can you think about scalability? Today probably your product is operating with a 10 million user base. If like user base goes to 100 millions, do you think about that kind of a scale? Can you think about like worst case scenarios? Let's say today there was an outage, like and this is a real life experience I'm talking about, right? When there were some floods, I think 2-3 years back in South India, a lot of companies had outages in their data centers, which led to servers going down and a lot of features not working. In that kind of a scenario, what kind of a customer experience do you want to provide? Can you build a disaster recovery kind of a roadmap to it, right? Those are things that you generally get evaluated for in a tech understanding role. And again, tech understanding is not a role where you need to excel in a round when you need to excel. I think as long as you have basic understanding of that, you are served. And then it is not a round which makes you unqualified for a PM role, right? It's more of a basic hygiene check. And then there is another round which is primarily on business sense, and this is not done for PMs who are getting into entry level PM roles at an APM at an APM or a PM1, PM2 kind of a level. Generally business sense rounds get done for senior folks, right, where you get to understand where interviewer asks about how would you build your business strategy, what are the things you need to do to get to profitability, and so on, right? So the intent is to understand how well do you understand business. Now these are the set of rounds that you have typically to evaluate to you in terms of your core skills as a product manager. Now the second core theme of your interview process is evaluating you on leadership skills, right? And here you generally get evaluated for 2-3 things. And the interesting thing to note here is you don't have specific rounds pertaining to each of these, right? Typically every interview round, the interviewer is unconsciously, semi-consciously or behind the scenes trying to judge you on some of these elements, right? So it's not like you have a separate round for some of these, but you are getting evaluated for each of these within each round. And these tie up to your role as a PM, right? The first thing is stakeholder management, right? How do you engage with stakeholders? Every stakeholder has a different motivation, different incentives. Do you understand that and find ways to influence him and rally behind your job? The second thing is conflict resolution. There will always be differences in opinion as you are working as a PM. Everyone has an opinion while working with you, right? Now, do you apply data to manage those conflicts? How do you kind of still maintain a healthy relationship, because you have to engage with them in the longer term and build products? And third is storytelling, and we talk about it, right? And you get evaluated for some of these in your leadership skills. And the third kind of thing that you get evaluated for in your interview process is your attitude, right? Because you have to understand that product manager is a role where you are always in the driver's seat. You are the one defining how the product should look 3 years, 4 years down the line. So you have to take a lot of ownership and get things done. And you have to be very, very proactive in your role. No one is going and come and tell you that do so and so, right? You have to take the leadership, take the step forward and start getting these things done, right? The second part is your learnability, because as a PM, it's a very generalistic role. You have to engage with very different functions. Today you are engaging with legal, tomorrow you have to engage with operations, right? And you are not the person. A lot many times in the room, you are not the best person. You are not the most knowledgeable person, or you don't have all the answers, right? At the same time, you have to stay curious. You have to have a learning mindset where you're open to absorbing new and new information and keep learning and kind of developing as a PM. The third is resilience, right? Where as a PM, you'll get to hear a lot of no's, where stakeholders tell you, no, we should not be doing this. I cannot do this. I don't have the bandwidth, right? You'll get used to hearing a lot of no's. But at the same time, you own the product and you have to make it deliver, right? So, and you have to be very persistent about it. You cannot give up. You have to continuously fight for what you think is right and you get it done. So you have to continuously put in an effort to convince your stakeholders to move your product forward and deliver in it. So typically an interview process will try to evaluate you on these three broad type of skills, right? Now, I'll just give you a lens of how it works in bigger companies, like in established tech companies like Flipkart in India, and even companies outside of India, right? So if you're getting in an entry kind of a role, an APM role, which you're getting into after an undergrad program, you'll typically get evaluated only with a screening round and then a problem solving round and a product thinking round. You don't get evaluated for business understanding or tech understanding, because a lot of you might not be coming from a software background, you might not have understanding, or you might not be coming from a business background. But if you're getting into a PM role or more senior roles, you also get evaluated for business and tech understanding roles. And all of you go through the hiring manager role, where generally these things around attitude and leadership get evaluated much more in depth, and also the element of how well do you fit into that culture of the company and the role and all of that. So this is typically how an interview process kind of looks like. And just before we end, right, and I think we've taken a good amount of time. As you grow in your PM role, your responsibilities change a lot, right? And this is a broad spectrum of how you grow as a PM. You start with an APM 1-2, you go into a PM 1-2, then you either become a senior product manager or a principal product manager, and then you get into a kind of a director kind of a role, right? Now, as you move from APM to a PM program, you start taking up responsibilities of mentoring. For example, how do I mentor my junior PMs and get to help them to get better at what they are doing? As you get into a senior product manager or group product manager role, you also get additional kind of responsibility in terms of managing people. You have people management responsibilities. You need to hire people and develop your PM team. And as you go into a director and a VP kind of roles, you need to also start thinking more org level, right? How do I design my organization? How do I identify what kind of people that I need in the future? How do I hire them? How do I staff the right number of people in the right team? So all of these things you kind of start thinking about as you grow in your career, and you start thinking more about actually building strategy and showing your leadership skills. Yeah, this is broadly what I had for today. I'll just stop here, and I'm open to taking questions if any. And these are my coordinates. If anyone wants to connect and know more about my experience or want to get any mentoring, happy to do that. Thank you.
Right, great. Thank you so much, Ram. If you could just stop presenting the screen, yeah, that would be great. Perfect. So yeah, firstly, thank you so much for sharing insights and sharing actionable points that the participants who were here in the session. For example, if he's a fresher, he would exactly know what should be his next step. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing these insights. And I also see a lot of questions as well in the Q&A. But yeah, before we just quickly jump into the Q&A, I would again just like to reiterate and share the program that we have with Upgrad. So, because I saw a lot of people wanted to enroll into the program. So I'm just going to quickly share a link of the program where you can explore and share details as well with us. And, our team will get in touch with you. So I've just shared the program details. You can go to this link. You can start exploring the program as well. All right, moving back to the Q&A. The first question that I see is from Gaurav. I'm working as a UI UX designer in a service-based company and looking forward to be a product manager. What bridge will be to fill this gap?
Yeah, I think I'll address in two parts, right? One is because you're a UX designer, what do you need to learn to become a better product manager, right? I think first and foremost, you probably know through user research or design, you probably understand the customer very well, right? But you need to also start developing your knowledge about the business, right? And technology a bit more as well, to understand what can be built, what cannot be built, what is the feasibility of it, what is the effort required to build a particular product, and understanding the metrics also your product can kind of impact, right? If you build a product, what should be the metrics I should look at, how does it contribute to your business metrics, all of that, right? Those are the skill sets that you need to build as a designer when you get into product management. Now the second bit is, because you're working in a service based company, and this is not a generalization, but this I've typically observed, right? In a service based company, you have a clientele and they come up with requirements, and you are not thinking bottoms up, right? You have a set of requirements you're trying to build to that. But in a product based company, there's no such thing, right? You own the product and you have to do bottoms up thinking to build your roadmap and what kind of features you need to build. So I think that's where the landscape would be slightly different for you, and you need to be prepared to excel in that kind of a role.
Right. Great. So thank you so much, Gaurav, for your question. I hope we were able to answer it. For you as well, I've just shared the link in the chat for the program. You can, since you want to become product manager, I'm sure this program will be very helpful for you. And you can just go and check it. And you can also share details with us, so our team can get in touch with you and help you take an informed decision here. Great. Moving on to the next one, which is from Shardul. What kind of roles does product management have in biotechnology or biomedical sector?
I am not very well versed with the biotechnology industry, so I would not be the right person to comment on this. But at the same time, I think what you have to understand is, see, as a product manager, you are primarily building digital products, right? So wherever in any domain or any sector, if you see digitization happening, there's a scope for product managers to come in and help do a better job of the digitization that the industry or the company is going through, right? I think yeah, that's a short answer. I cannot dive into more details because I don't have complete understanding of the sector, but happy to share more information as I develop offline.
Right. Also, Shardul, what you can do is you can also, like I said, you can get in touch with our academic team as well, because they kind of research about what are the roles, and they can help you better. So I'm sure they might help you in terms of this question that you have. So just go to this link and share application with us, and like I said, we would be very happy to assist you. Okay, the next one that I see. Okay, it's from Kamruddin. I always see examples with software background moving to product manager. I would like to know if product manager role is only available in software-based companies. Need to understand on non-software companies product manager roles and opportunities.
Yeah, I think a couple of things I want to clarify, right? I think the designation of product manager also exists in a lot of traditional companies, like let's say the FMCG industry. Let's say you're operating in a Hindustan Unilever or a PNG kind of a company. They also have roles which say product manager, but your role is very, very different from what we are talking about today, right? There probably you're trying to identify where there is a gap in the market. For example, what is the next detergent product probably I want to launch, in terms of where is a gap in the market and customer needs, right? But when we talk about product management today, I think we are mostly talking about either the hardware space or the software space, right? And in the hardware space, you are building devices. Like let's say if you're in a Microsoft, you're building a a Surface tablet or whatever it is. If you're in a Google, probably you're building a Google Pixel phone or whatever it is. So there are product management roles with hardware roles or companies, and there are product manager roles in software companies as well, where you build applications and all of that. But the other thing I want to add here is, it need not be a software company to have a software product manager role, right? Like for example, you have a pure play logistics company, right? Let's say, I don't know, Blue Dat, right? It's a pure play logistics company which is just transporting goods from one place to another. But at the same time, what you have to understand is behind the scenes, they also apply certain software to help them like route the product in the right way, right? Or do the pricing in the right way. or understand where am I generating sales and analytics around it, right? So there are a lot of softwares which are working behind the scenes, even in a non-software company, and there is a role that a product manager can play in those kind of areas.
Right. Great. I hope, Kamruddin, we were able to answer your question. There is a question from Chaitanya: how to build and share a portfolio with interviewer?
Yeah, I think there's a good question, and good that you're asking this. And is I would recommend every PM aspirant to put in a conscious effort to do this, right? So if you think about building a portfolio, I think the objective is for you to showcase to a recruiter that you're ready for the role and you think like a product manager, right? And as you and what is your expectation as you think like a product manager? You need to understand what your problem is. You have to have a very good understanding of what the problem is, what are the different user personas, what their pain points are, what their needs are, how do I solve those needs using technology. So what are the features or solutions that I need to build, how do I launch my product, and what are the metrics I will track after launching to understand if my product is successful or not successful, right? So those are the things you would want to display through the things that you add to your portfolio. Now, in terms of a format, there is no prescribed format. These can be just a set of PDF reports or whatever it is. There is no prescribed format, but you can do some sample kind of case studies, right? Let's say you pick, let's say Amiso or an Uber, and kind of pick one area. What does the product do well in serving a customer need, or what does it not do well? If it is not doing so well in serving a particular customer need or solving a problem, if you are a PM, how can you do that, right? So I think just take some problems that you interface in a real life scenario and try to wear the PM hat and kind of display your thinking process if you are a PM there.
Right. Thank you so much, Chaitanya, for that question. That was a very well thought and like an interesting question. Thank you so much for that. I'm seeing a hand raise from Amit, so I'll just quickly take his question. What is the role of PM in management strategies?
In management strategies, I think, I mean, I don't know what that question means exactly, but I'll try to take a shot at it. So I think when you're an entry level PM, you're mostly focused on building certain features and delivering them and delivering business value out of it, right? You're building products and you're executing on them. But as you graduate in your career as a PM, you start contributing to product strategy and business strategy. Today, if you look at the landscape, a lot of the CEOs and CXOs of technology companies happen to be coming from a product management background. If you pick Sundar Pichai, he has been a product manager in the past. So you can talk about n number of CXOs and they come from a product management background, right? So as and when technology becomes the centerpiece of how you evolve as a company, you need to start thinking, how do I build a good product strategy and how does it tie up well with my business strategy? And the second point to that is, whatever skill sets that you build as a product manager, they are very, very transferable. They are not limited to you applying it in a product management role. Like tomorrow, if for whatever reason you decide that I don't want to do product management in the longer term, let me move out to something else and try doing it, you will be able to apply the skill sets that you develop as a product manager in those roles as well and succeed in it. So your skill sets are very much transferable, and you can get into a consulting role, or you can get into a strategy role. You can get into n number of roles after being a product manager. Right. I hope that answers your question. I don't know if I attacked it in the very specific way.
Right, great. So let us know, if we were able to answer your question. Okay, the next one is from Vishal. Is distance learning for MBA worth it? If yes, then which college is good option in upgrade course list? So first one, Ram, would you like to take? Is distance learning for MBA?
Would you like to reiterate the question for me once?
Right. So Vishal says, is distance learning for MBA worth it?
So I think the way to evaluate it is, again, like I'll reiterate, right? You have a set of competencies that you need to succeed as a product manager. And I talked about the interview process as well. So try to take a conscious look at how you are ready, how much ready you are in each of those competencies, right? And what are the skills that I need to additionally develop to succeed as a PM? And then map those skill gaps with the curriculum of the MBA program or any kind of professional course that you go through. And does that course help you bridge that gap? That is one way to evaluate it. Like if you have if you think there are 5 skills I need to develop, and as part of my MBA program, there are 5 courses which help me bridge those 5 gaps, then yes, I should definitely take it up. The second part is thinking about what is the way of delivering, what is the pedagogy they follow in order to deliver the content, right? Is it more theoretical in terms of the experience, or is it more experiential practice based learning where you probably do brainstorming together in small cohorts, or an opportunity to talk to your mentors and bounce off your ideas, right? If those are there, then even better, you should definitely take that up. And the third is, at the end of the program, do you have an opportunity to get placed in different companies, right? Are there structured programs to help you connect with your recruiters and get to explore certain PM opportunities which exist in in India, right? I think these are the 3 things that you should check and make a list of it, and then decide whether you should take it up or not.
Right. Also, I would like to add, Vishal, is that, see, when you're talking about MBA, right? So if you do it from a tier 1 college, see, the thing is, college also matters, right? If you are asking about distance and stuff. So when you're doing an MBA, and if you're tapping a tier 1 college, then it's good. But when you're doing, let's say, if you don't have that kind of, uh, the luxury to get into a tier 1 college, online programs then help you, because you get associated to a good brand as well. And at the end, you also would learn, you would also be working while learning, and then you'll also learn what exactly is required in the market in terms of the competencies and the skills that you will acquire. And then, of course, placements then follow as well, right? So these are the parameters that you should also think about, Vishal, when you're deciding on this. Apart from that, in terms of the college options or the university options that we have, I think for this, we need to first understand what background are you coming from, and what's the outcome that you're expecting. So for that, again, what I'll mention is that I'll just share the same link with you. You can just share details with us, submit an application, and our team will get in touch with you, and they can probably give you like a proper counseling session, and then probably you'll have more clarity. So that's what you can do here. Okay, moving on to the next question. Okay, Vishal is saying, I've pursued ML AI post degree from upgrad. I want to jump for product manager role now.
Sorry, was that a question?
Okay, so he's just telling us that he wants to move into a product manager role, right? So that's what I'm saying, Vishal. You can just get in touch with our academic team, and if you really want to get into the product management domain, you have to acquire the skill sets, right? Otherwise, it's not, you won't be able to crack your way in the domain, right? And when you talk about acquiring skills, you will have to learn. So for that reason, I'm just sharing, the program details with you. You can just take a look and probably get in touch with our team, and they'll also be able to help you better there. Okay. I'm just scrolling to the questions that are there. There was just this one question that I saw. Okay, this is again from Chaitanya. Another question on the portfolio. As developers have Git to showcase their work, similar way, do we have any tools site to add case studies or work? This is a good question.
This is a good question. Yeah, I don't think so. And Subhada, if you have a different view to this, please do add. Developers have Git, designers have Behance or Dribble to kind of show their portfolio, and they make their designs also in tools like XD or Figma or Sketch or whatever it is, right? But I don't think product managers there is any recommended tool. It just you can use any platform. You can put it in Notion, or you can put it in any kind of platform to showcase your portfolio. The second thing is, try to build your portfolio in a very diverse way. You can probably do a product tear down where you take an existing app, break it down. Why did it build certain feature? What is good? What is bad about it? The second thing, maybe you can take on product and talk about its metrics, like what should be the metrics, what should be the counter metrics, all of that. The third one can be, you take a product, wear the PM hat and develop in terms of show a roadmap in terms of what you do if you're a PM there. So there are different kind of case studies that you can build to showcase your skills in different spectrums or different nuances of the product management role. But there's no such format, described format. It can be PDF reports, it can be any kind of thing which works for you.
Right. And also, I think, Ram, there are, aspiring PMs who also kind of build their portfolio, they are like website and, they showcase what they have done. You can also probably, Chaitanya, do something like that, like,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
that's an interesting thing, right? A lot of the no-code tools which have come in, which help you build quick prototypes, right, of how you're thinking. So you can definitely leverage them to put your idea to action and build a prototype and help communicate the idea in a much more better way.
Right. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chaitanya, for that question. So I'm just taking a last question. I'm just going to check. Okay, so I just have to pick one question. Okay, so let's take a question from Gaurav. Also, I'm working in a service-based company. So here we have multiple project managers, but not product managers. What thing can help me in this?
Yeah, I think there is a difference between the project manager role and a product manager role. And I also keep getting this question too often, right? So the role of a project manager is to primarily uh, on the execution part, primarily to deliver on the committed things, right? If I committed a timeline of within which I'll deliver, let's say 5 features, how do I help unblock those features if there are any blockers? How do I make sure that the 5 stakeholders who need to put in the effort to help build that, they're actually doing their job and kind of delivering to the timeline, and keep leadership updated about where we are in that journey. Are we going to miss the timeline? If yes, what are the mitigation steps? What are the risks around it? Communicate all of that. So it is more about execution, managing deliverables and the timelines, and helping meet those meet the commitments that we've made. But if you contrast it to the product manager role is very, very different. A product manager's role is to primarily solve problems, either customer problems or business problems, and you leverage technology as far as possible to help you solve those problems, right? So that's the role of a product manager. Because you're also building products or features as a product manager, you spend some time in doing the execution and launching the product. So you probably spend 10%, 20% of your time in doing project management, but that's only a very minor portion of your product manager role in a day-to-day life. Bulk of your time, you're either working with analytics team or user research teams to understand different metrics, different pain points, what the problems in your product. You're trying to work with engineers to build a roadmap or kind of execute on the roadmap that you've come up with, and you're trying to work with leadership to sell your vision and the future looking roadmap that you've built for your product, right? I think the role of project manager and product manager are very different in that way.
Correct. Great. So yeah, I think this is what we had. In terms of the questions, I've taken majority of the questions that are there, but yeah, again, because of time constraints, I won't be able to take the next few questions. But yeah, we've covered almost everything. So yeah, thank you so much, Ram, for joining us and sharing your 2 cents. Again, very important because a lot of aspiring PMs, they want to get into the domain, but then they don't have the proper guidance, in terms of taking the right decisions, be it in terms of the program that they want to upskill or whether they want to even get into the industry or the career trajectory and a lot of things, right? So thank you so much for coming and sharing your insights. And participants, thank you so much for staying throughout the session. Just one last thing, I would just like to mention about the program. So I'm sure a lot of participants also want to enroll into the program and also want to know more about the program because I saw that in the poll. So again, this is the link, but just to quickly reiterate on the program. This program will give you a very good understanding in terms of how product management looks when you're doing the real product management job. We have taken insights from experts like Ram to design the program so that we also have career assistance, right? And if we are giving you career assistance, so we have to make sure that you would be able to work in that role once you've upskilled yourself or once you've learned the concepts that we have, right? So that way the syllabus, the curriculum that we have is completely aligns to what is the industry expectations out there. And how as a product manager, how in a product manager's shoe, what you'll be doing is exactly what is taught in the program. So feel free to check that out as well. And we also have specializations in the product management program. So if you like Ram mentioned, there are different types of PMs, right? So we have growth PMs, we have growth PM as a specialization, we have artificial intelligence and machine learning, which can be more related to tech and data and stuff like that. And then we also have digital transformation for leaders, right? So these are the specializations that we have. So yeah, just do check that out. And participants who wanted to enroll, I hope, not sure, but I hope we were able to answer your questions, and now you are at least in a position where you can take an informed decision for yourself, and you know what exactly you have to do as the next step. So yeah, this is what I had. I'm just going to end the session with the last poll, that is the feedback poll. Important for us to understand how the session was, so we can keep improvising and making your experience better. All right. What I'll also do is I'll just share my professional email ID. So if in case if you do have any questions, you can just write to me. And if it is in my scope, I'll answer the question. If not, I'll make sure I'll redirect it to the concerned team or the concerned person. Great. So I think we have 85% participation as of now, and it's 100% yes from everyone that the session was helpful. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Just a little feedback to you as Ram. So yeah, thank you so much. Hope to see you all in the upcoming
Thanks,
session.
Shraddha. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.